Stop taking pride in how good you are to women. It might sound harsh, but it's the truth that can save you from a lifetime of confusion, exhaustion, and quiet humiliation. Men are raised to believe that kindness wins love, that patience earns loyalty, that goodness guarantees remembrance. But Machiavelli would laugh at that. He'd say a man who tries to be loved by everyone will be used by everyone. And he'd be right. Because in this world, especially in the complex field of male-female dynamics, goodness doesn't protect men, it exposes them. When a man is endlessly kind, endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving, he doesn't appear noble, he appears predictable. And in Machiavelli's world and ours, predictability kills respect. Every man who's tried to please every woman eventually learns the same truth. The more you give, the less you're valued. The more you chase peace, the more chaos finds you. It's not because women are cruel, it's because people naturally test the limits of what they can get away with. The woman you treat like a queen without boundaries wants to become your loyal partner. She'll become your mirror, reflecting your weakness back at you until you can't stand the sight of yourself. Machiavelli once said that men should either be caressed or destroyed, meaning people only respond to power or complete withdrawal, never indecision. But modern men live trapped in between, too afraid to be cruel, too timid to be strong. They think endless goodness is their armor, but it's actually the knife that keeps cutting them open. Goodness without strategy isn't virtue, it's vanity. It's a man saying, "Look how selfless I am," while secretly hoping the world will reward him for it. But it won't. The world takes, smiles, and walks away. And each time a man gives without purpose, he chips away at his own authority. You've probably done it too. Apologized when you weren't wrong, comforted someone who disrespected you, stayed in a draining relationship because you didn't want to seem heartless. That's not goodness. That's fear wearing a halo. Machiavelli wrote, "The man who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it may expect to be destroyed by it. Replace city with woman, and the pattern becomes clear. When you give someone unlimited emotional freedom without structure, that freedom turns against you. They'll test your patience until it breaks, not out of malice, but because human nature demands it. Power hates a vacuum. When you refuse to lead in your relationships, someone else, usually her emotions, will. So here's the first painful truth. Being good to all women isn't noble. It's naive. It's not a sign of maturity. It's the residue of guilt, the belief that you must suffer to earn love. You were taught that women reward kindness with affection, but in reality they reward strength with admiration and boundaries with respect. There's a certain look men get when they've been too good for too long. You can see it in their eyes. A quiet fatigue no rest can fix. It's the exhaustion of trying to prove worth through kindness. He's the man who pays for every dinner, listens to every complaint, forgives every insult, believing that if he just keeps being good, someday the world, and the women in it, will recognize his value. But Machiavelli would disagree. He'd say that unguarded value becomes a gift for the cunning. When you're good to everyone, you become useful to everyone and respected by no one. In politics, Machiavelli noted that rulers who showed endless mercy were always the first to fall. People mistook compassion for weakness, kindness for lack of will. The same rule governs your personal life. The more predictable your goodness, the faster it loses power. A man's kindness is respected only when it feels like a choice, not an obligation. That's the secret most men never learn. When your goodness is endless, it stops being special. It becomes background noise. A woman who never has to earn your affection begins to question its value. She'll test your patience, not out of cruelty, but to confirm it still exists. Each time you rush to fix her problems, calm her storms, or rescue her from consequences, you teach her that your love has no price, and what's free is always treated as disposable. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, covetous." He wasn't condemning humanity. He was describing it. He understood that people naturally seek their advantage, and if you offer your energy freely without standards, they'll take it until nothing remains but a polite smile and an empty shell. That's not evil, it's instinct. Like water filling every gap, people flow into the spaces your boundaries should close. The cost of being good to everyone isn't just emotional, it's existential. You lose your edge, your mystery, your masculine essence. You stop being the man who inspires respect and become the man who's always available, always agreeable, always drained. Women might like you, but they won't desire you, because desire isn't born from kindness. It's born from polarity, from tension between admiration and challenge. The irony? The man who tries to please every woman ends up pleasing none, while the man who pleases himself first earns loyalty from all around him. Not because he's selfish, but because he radiates something rare, self-respect. Remember this, your goodness should be rare, not routine, earned, not expected. It should lift others, not trap you. Be the man who helps when it's deserved, not demanded, because when kindness is strategic, it becomes strength. But when it's constant, it becomes your leash. Machiavelli warned that it's safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. He wasn't promoting cruelty, he meant balance. If love costs you respect, it's not love worth keeping. Every man eventually realizes when his kindness has made him invisible. It doesn't happen overnight. It creeps in through politeness and small compromises. One day she stops listening. Another day she cancels without guilt. Then she stops saying thank you. And somewhere between your sacrifices and her comfort, you disappear. This is what Machiavelli called the decay of power through familiarity. When you make your goodness too common, it loses all weight. A favor given daily stops being a gift. It becomes an expectation. A compliment repeated endlessly becomes noise. A man who gives without pause turns into background furniture in his own life, present, useful, but unremarkable. Women don't plan to disrespect a good man, they just stop feeling him. Nature doesn't reward abundance, it rewards scarcity. The sun rises every day and no one claps. But let the sky stay dark too long, and the world prays for light. That's the paradox of male goodness. The more constant it is, the less it's valued. Machiavelli said the unarmed prophet perishes. Translate that to modern love. It means the unguarded man loses everything. Being unarmed isn't about lacking weapons. It's about lacking edge. If you don't project strength, you'll be seen as someone who serves, not leads. And no matter what people say, respect never follows servitude. It follows command. Good men often mistake invisibility for humility. They think quiet obedience makes them noble, but humility without presence isn't virtue. It's disappearance. You fade out of your own story while louder, colder, more confident men take the spotlight. The irony? Those men aren't always better. They're just visible. Their energy has edges. Their attention has gravity. And that gravity pulls people in, including the women who once ignored you. Machiavelli said appearances rule the world, not intentions, not morality. Appearances. The man who appears strong is treated that way, even if he doubts himself. The man who appears too good is treated like a servant, even if his heart is pure. Because the world doesn't reward sincerity, it rewards projection. If you want your goodness to matter, pair it with presence. Know when to step back, when to say no, when to let silence speak. A man's goodness has value only when it feels like a choice, not an obligation. Remind the world, gently but firmly, that your time, energy, and loyalty are limited currencies. Here's the truth. Women respect men who make them earn their kindness. They dismiss men who hand it out like free samples. The invisible man believes he's doing everything right, supportive, patient, always available, but in doing so, he gives away what makes his goodness powerful: mystery. And once you lose mystery, you lose magnetism. Every man must eventually learn what Machiavelli knew centuries ago. Goodness, when scattered everywhere, becomes worthless. Kindness isn't wrong, but excess kills meaning. Just as too much sunlight burns the crop it should nourish, too much goodness destroys the respect it's meant to earn. Selective goodness, that's real power. Knowing when to show mercy and when to let silence do the teaching. Knowing which woman deserves your warmth and which must feel your absence. That's the art of strategy in relationships. Machiavelli said, "A prince must learn how not to be good and use that knowledge when necessary." He didn't mean cruelty. He meant control. He meant mastering measured virtue, the ability to choose, not the impulse to please. When kindness is predictable, it stops inspiring gratitude and starts breeding entitlement. But when kindness is rare, it becomes sacred. The woman who knows your generosity isn't guaranteed will protect it, treasure it, and rise to meet it. The one who assumes it's endless will drain it dry, and that's the tragedy of many modern men. They give until they're empty, thinking love will refill them. But love honors fullness, not depletion. A man's strength isn't measured by what he gives away, but by what he protects, his peace, his time, his energy, his standards. The man who guards nothing eventually becomes nothing. Machiavelli once warned that mercy without limits invites rebellion. In your life, that rebellion appears as disrespect. The partner who ignores you, the colleague who dumps their work on you, the friend who only calls when she needs something. They don't despise you. They simply see you as free labor, emotionally or otherwise. And when you finally stop giving without end, people react. They'll call you selfish, cold, changed. But what they're really saying is, you stopped being my emotional servant. Don't let guilt pull you back into the cage of blind goodness. Let discomfort teach you, because on the other side of guilt lies power. And when you learn to live with that guilt, you finally begin living on your own terms. Machiavelli believed the highest form of intelligence was adaptability. The man who adapts his goodness, who knows when to be soft and when to be steel, becomes untouchable. Women are drawn to that man, not because he's nice, but because he's unpredictable in all the right ways. His warmth has timing. His affection has weight. His attention feels earned. That's what commands respect. Not endless giving, but earned access. Stop believing that good men finish last. It's not good men who finish last. It's unguarded men, men without discernment. Good men with strategy rule kingdoms. In love, in business, in life. The difference isn't goodness, it's governance. Govern your goodness as a ruler guards his throne. Show mercy as a symbol of power, not as an apology for existing. Because a man's value isn't measured by how much he gives, it's measured by how little he allows to be taken without merit. Every man who's ever loved deeply has faced this test, even if he never recognized it. The woman he adores begins to push, softly at first, then boldly. She asks for more, challenges his choices, tests his patience, and the good man, eager to prove devotion, keeps saying yes. He gives her what she wants, even when it costs him peace. He believes love will balance the scales. But Machiavelli would shake his head and say, "You've lost command of your own state." Because every relationship is a kingdom, and every kingdom needs a ruler. Not a tyrant, a ruler. When a man's boundaries collapse, chaos takes his place. The woman doesn't consciously want to dominate him. She wants to feel his strength, his presence, that invisible line that says, "This is a man who cannot be moved by guilt or fear." When she stops feeling that, she begins to resent him, even as he tries harder to please her. Machiavelli warned, "The man who builds his power on love alone builds on sand." Love cannot sustain authority. It needs respect as its foundation. Women may say they want a man who's endlessly gentle, endlessly forgiving, but what they truly crave is certainty, the assurance that he won't break no matter how hard she tests him. That's what makes her feel safe. That's what earns her trust. But most men fail this test. They mistake emotional turbulence for passion, manipulation for intimacy, apology for peace. They extend kindness to fix what only firmness can restore. And each time they do, their power erodes. They become anxious, cautious, afraid of conflict. They start measuring every word, every silence, every look. And before long, they're strangers in their own lives, men built entirely around someone else's emotions. This is the hidden cost of being good to all women. You lose the ability to be respected by any. Your love turns into charity. Your attention becomes a drug. And eventually, even your absence won to be felt, because you've trained everyone to believe your presence is guaranteed. Machiavelli wrote that conflict should never be avoided, only managed. There is no avoiding war, he said. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others. The same truth applies to relationships. Every time you avoid confrontation to keep the peace, you delay unnecessary reckoning. And it always returns with interest. Resentment builds quietly. Respect dies silently. So when she tests you, when she challenges your limits, understand this. It isn't hatred, it's instinct. She's trying to see if your power is real or just performed. And when you finally draw the line, not with anger but calm certainty, you awaken something ancient in her. A woman may never say it aloud, but she feels safest with a man who won't trade his principles for approval. To pass the feminine test is not to dominate her. It's to master yourself, to show that your kindness is chosen, not automatic, that your love is given, not owed. Because the moment you start living for her approval, you've already surrendered your crown. A man who tries to please every woman slowly betrays himself, softening his words, dulling his opinions, hiding his edge. He becomes agreeable, polite, safe. The kind of man women say they like, but never desire. And that is the cruel irony Machiavelli would mock. The man who tries to be loved by everyone ends up loved by no one, because his love costs nothing. You see it in the good guys, the ones who open doors, send flowers, apologize first, compromise always. They think sacrifice proves worth, but really, it signals weakness. And no matter how modern the world becomes, nature's laws haven't changed. Women don't follow men who apologize for their masculinity. They follow men who stand firmly in it. Machiavelli once wrote, "The man who seeks to be loved will always serve those who do not." In other words, when you crave validation, you hand others the power to define your worth. Every time you chase approval, you shrink yourself. Every time you give endlessly, hoping to earn loyalty, you remind the world that your value can be rented. The true cost of being good to all women isn't measured in heartbreak. It is measured in identity. You begin losing the part of you that once commanded respect, your conviction, your decisiveness, your edge. You become an actor in your own story, performing niceness while resenting those you serve. That's why so many good men end up bitter. They weren't born that way. They were shaped by years of trying to earn love from those who only respect power. Machiavelli's wisdom was clear. To survive, a man must sometimes disappoint others, not out of cruelty, but to protect his position. The ruler who tries to please every subject destroys his kingdom. The man who tries to please every woman destroys himself. Understand this. Your goodness isn't what makes you valuable. Your boundaries are. Kindness means nothing without the ability to withdraw it. When people know you'll always forgive, they stop fearing your loss. And when they no longer fear losing you, your presence stops mattering. So stop being everyone's healer. Stop being the man who softens every blow and explains every mood. The world doesn't need more self-sacrificing saints. It needs men who say no with dignity. Men who love without losing themselves. Men who help without needing to be needed. Machiavelli said, "The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present." Meaning, When circumstances change, loyalty must be reevaluated. The man who keeps promises that destroy his future isn't virtuous. He's blind. And in love, that means learning when to stop giving what's no longer deserved. Every good man eventually reaches a point where he looks in the mirror and says, "I'm done buying peace with pieces of myself." That's the moment transformation begins. Here is the truth Machiavelli understood long before modern men forgot it. Goodness without power isn't goodness. It's submission disguised as virtue. A man's kindness holds value only when it's backed by strength. When he can be cruel, but chooses restraint when he can walk away, but chooses to stay when he can say no and still offer yes with intent. That's what makes goodness powerful. It's controlled, not compulsive. Every man who's been betrayed, used, or overlooked for his kindness faces this decision: stay naive or become wise. Wisdom begins the moment you stop confusing love with servitude. You were never meant to be endlessly patient, endlessly understanding, endlessly giving. You were meant to be balanced, firm and fair, strategic and sincere. The world doesn't respect men who worship goodness. It respects men who command it. Machiavelli warned that the man who is entirely good will perish among those who are not. It wasn't a call for cruelty. It was a call for awareness. He understood that morality alone doesn't protect you. It never has. In life, as in politics, wolves don't spare sheep because they're kind. They spare them only when they fear the shepherd. So if you want to be good like a sword, sharp, deliberate, and drawn only when necessary. Let your mercy be chosen, not assumed. Let your love be precious, not free. Let your patience be the gift of strength, not the apology of weakness. Because the real cost of being good to all women isn't to just lost respect. It is the slow death of your masculine spirit, the part of you that's meant to lead, protect, and choose. Every time you give what hasn't been earned, you teach the world to devalue you. But every time you stand firm, you teach it to rise to your level. So from this moment on, stop trying to prove your goodness. Let your silence prove your strength. Be kind when it serves your purpose, not your guilt. Be generous to those who've earned your loyalty. Be patient with those who respect your time. That's how you turn kindness into power, not through quantity, but through precision. Because in the end, the man who wins isn't the one who gives everything. It is the one who knows what is worth giving and when to stop. If this message stirred something in you, don't let it fade when the screen goes dark. Hit like, share this truth with a brother who needs it, and subscribe for more wisdom from history's most dangerous thinkers. And remember this final truth: the world may never reward your goodness, but it will always respect your strength. Choose both, but never one at the expense of the other. This is Machiavelli's warning to every modern man. When you give your heart to everyone, you lose it forever. Guard it, rule wisely, and never apologize for your strength.